Now it's time to bring in some guests. We, I believe, are the first group of nonprofit leaders that are going to be having a conversation as a group, and you'll see this throughout the day tomorrow as well. And this hour features Seacoast nonprofits, so I'm proud to be here representing the Seacoast of New Hampshire. And joining me are Martha Cohen-Stone of Crossroads House, Astrid Whelans of Zebra Crossings, and Molly Hodgson of Good Work. And I'm familiar with all these organizations. They're very close to my heart here in the Seacoast, but I'm not sure those of you watching are familiar with all of us. So I'd like to take a moment to go around the screen and have each of these leaders introduce you to themselves and their organization. And then once we've all introduced ourselves, take a minute or two each to introduce ourselves, we're going to have a conversation about what's important to us in nonprofit work in the state of New Hampshire and in the Seacoast, and why it's so important that we receive support throughout the year, and especially on New Hampshire Gives Day. So first, I'm going to hand it over to Molly Hodgson, and she's going to introduce herself and talk a little bit about her organization. So go ahead, Molly.
Thank you, Russ. Great to be here. I've been watching the ticker go, and this is great energy. Really excited to be a part of New Hampshire Gives this year. So Good Work is a nonprofit incubator located in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We're brand new, just 2 years old. We provide customized strategic support to early stage and idea phase nonprofits. And I am proud to be in partnership with my colleague, Maria Solari. We are joint leaders of this organization, and excited to be here. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Really excited to have this conversation with you and everyone here tonight. Next, I'd like to go to Martha Stone, who's with us from Crossroads House. Go ahead, Martha.
Thank you, Russ. Glad to be here with you all this evening. As Russ said, I'm Martha Stone. I'm the Executive Director of Crossroads House. We are an emergency shelter providing safe spaces for men, women, and children in the Seacoast region who are experiencing homelessness. While we are a shelter located in Portsmouth, we actually have a very large service area. So we are serving folks coming from all of Eastern Rockingham County, all of Stratford County, and even up into Southern York, Maine. Typically speaking, we serve 400 to 500 people a year, and on a typical night, we can have approximately 100 people in our shelter. So while poverty can be a little bit invisible in our region, I can assure you that there are a lot of folks who are struggling and need emergency shelter, and our ultimate mission is to help people not only meet those emergency needs of a safe place to sleep and food to eat, case management, but ultimately returning back to permanent housing. And I will just put a plug in for Good Work, and we'll talk about this, but I also, in the world of It's a Small World, participate with Molly in Good Work as a mentor. So it's a great group to be with this evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Martha. Next, we have Astrid Whelans from Zebra Crossings. Go ahead, Astrid. Let's hear a little bit about you and your organization.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me, and a very exciting day to watch that ticker go up. I totally agree. Zebra Crossings is a Dover-based nonprofit, and we provide empowerment programs for children who have chronic medical conditions, as well as their families. And our programs are really intended to bring them together and to provide an opportunity for them to connect with other families, to share their stories, to find support, and to truly get empowered by having new experiences and new opportunities to discover what they're capable of achieving. And this has been our 11th year, and we're looking forward to a bright future.
That's absolutely wonderful. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't share with everyone who's watching a little bit about Portsmouth Music and Arts Center, or PMAC, where I am CEO. PMAC has been around for almost 19 years. We're celebrating our 19th year this year. We are a community music and visual arts school located in the Seacoast in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And our mission is to build community through the arts. And we do that by providing high quality music and visual arts education opportunities for community members of all ages. So whether it's a 4-year-old who wants to learn the piano, or a 65-year-old recent retiree who wants to pick up their trumpet again for the first time in 50 years, or possibly, someone who wants to just learn how to paint or to sculpt or to take photographs. We have these wonderful music and visual arts programs. There are after-school programs, evening programs, summer programs that are supported by our community. We provide over $50,000 a year in tuition assistance to make sure these programs are accessible to everyone throughout our community. And we have a wonderful and amazing faculty of 40 professional musicians and visual artists that act for mentors for their students, act as mentors. And it's really something I'm very proud of, and I think we've accomplished a lot in the community. And I'm really excited to talk tonight about how what we do fits into the great puzzle of service that's happening throughout the Seacoast and throughout New Hampshire with nonprofit organizations. So I think the first thing I was hoping we could do is maybe go around the room again, but this time instead of describing your organization, maybe you have a specific story of your organization's mission and action, something that really shares with our audience tonight, the meaningful work that your organization is doing in the community. And I'm going to reverse the order. So Astrid, let's start with you. Go right ahead.
Yeah, as I said in my introduction, this is our 11th year, and in 2019, we actually celebrate our 10-year anniversary. So I guess this is 12. Time flies during COVID.
That's right.
But I think the exciting thing is what really tells our story is that when we were celebrating our 10-year anniversary is that we had campers, former campers who joined us at age 6, 7, 8 years old, were present at our anniversary celebration. And they were standing there as leaders in training, and they were standing there as volunteers or staff members of our program. And it was such a highlight. It was just amazing to see these kids grow over the years into becoming confident adults who now want to give back to kids that they can relate to the kids that were part of their story. And what I love is that some of these kids were truly saying, and now young people, that their story really was that they felt alone in the world. They felt alone as a kid that had these chronic medical conditions that were not understood. And through zebra crossings, they found a community. They found a sense of normalcy and a sense of hope and belonging. And I think a lot of them now were to the point saying, I now know that I can pursue my dreams, but do it my way. And it may be a slightly different way than other kids, but I can find my way now forward and have that sense of confidence that I can have a fulfillment in my life. And I want to give that back. And I think that's the most powerful piece for me. It's the most rewarding piece. And I look forward to returning to our community soon. And it's been a quiet year for us on the program front, but I'm looking forward to reuniting with our community.
That's absolutely amazing. Martha, I know you have stories because I've heard so many amazing stories of Crossroads House, and I don't want to steal your thunder by telling the stories I've heard. So why don't you share something from your work?
Thank you, Russ. It's difficult to choose just one because we have impacted the lives of so many people over the years. And I was remiss in my introduction. I did not mention that Crossroads House has been around since 1982. So next year will be 40 years for us. So there are thousands and thousands of people who have passed through our shelter. And I think the thing, and I will tell a story, but I will just preface it by saying that most people think of an emergency shelter as a place where someone can sleep, and they are not wrong. We provide a safe place for people to sleep, and we provide meals. But beyond that, when someone is experiencing homelessness, their needs are typically fairly complex, and they need a lot more than just a place to sleep. And that's one of the things that I take so much pride in is the case management that we offer, and our staff that works 24/7 at our front desk. We never ever close, not even during a pandemic. Our staff showed up to work every day, even on those really scary days where we didn't know what that was going to look like. But I'll give you an example of just one of the many, many stories. I mean, we know that it can be terrifying for someone, even when they're in their darkest hour of not having anywhere to sleep at night, to make the decision to go into an emergency shelter. And in one particular case, I remember a story that was told by a female resident who stayed with us that she'd heard of us and she knew what we we offered, but she just was afraid to come in, didn't know what to expect. And I've heard this many, many times. People remember the first day they came into the shelter. They remember how they were treated. They remember how staff looked them in the eye and made contact and smiled at them and felt welcoming, because people who are experiencing homelessness are often, people don't even want to look at them or engage. And so they remember how they were welcomed. And she remembered how she felt on the day that she came in. She had experienced a medical condition that caused her to lose her job. That ultimately she lost her apartment, her finances. She ended up living in her car for a year and a half before she decided to come into the shelter. And, once she took that bold step to come in and say, I need help, and opened herself up to receiving it, a multitude of services were offered to her. And ultimately we helped her move out into her own place. And I think that, people don't always realize how transformational it is for someone coming in, and people become homeless for so many different reasons, Russ, and I won't go into all of them, but I know that people often ask me, well, how does someone end up in that situation? And it can be just pure finances, families break up, it can be substance use disorders, although not always. It can be mental health issues, it can be medical conditions. There's so many different things, and so we address all of those through our case management. But at the end of the day, when someone is moving out into an apartment, it's so much more than just having a place to live. It's really, they've turned their life around, and we continue to support them through case management that's done once they're in their home setting. And we have a fun celebratory ritual that we started this past year where I put up a brass bell in the shelter, and there's a key dangling from it. And we invite people who sign their leases and get their own keys to their apartment to ring that bell, which then provides inspiration to others who are still in the shelter. So I will stop there and hand it back to you. So
I absolutely love that story, and that's wonderful. And you're right. I mean, I feel very lucky and privileged in my life to have had a wonderful family support system. But in my younger years, there were times where I myself could have been a paycheck away from being homeless because so many people in this country live paycheck to paycheck. So the work that you do in the community is so incredibly valuable, and I appreciate it so much. Molly, tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing, the good work that you're doing at Good Work.
Yeah. So we're the youngest in the bunch. We're just 2 years old. And I describe Good Work as the organization that probably we all wish existed when we were founding or starting our organizations. And Martha, you mentioned earlier a shout out about serving as a mentor for Good Work. All of you do, actually. I realized that as I was getting ready. Each of you has either mentored a previous cohort member or are currently mentoring one of our early stage nonprofits. So thank you for that. I've been the founding director of 2 small startups myself, and it can be a pretty scary, lonely experience. And when I was very inexperienced and naive, and I wish I had an organization like Good Work to not only provide professional development and mentorship and coaching, but to allow these organizations to feel truly heard and understood, and come at it with empathy and meet them where they are. Because it's easy to teach an organization about proper board governance and those kinds of things, but it's another thing to sit with them and hear them talk through their limitations around capacity or funding issues, and really understand them, because we've been in their shoes. And that's what you all do as mentors. That's what Maria and I do in our coaching of these nonprofits. We focus on the idea phase and early stage of the life cycle. We hope to expand services to existing nonprofits as we grow ourselves. And we do that in a really, really special place. Cary Cottage is our headquarters, and it serves as not only our headquarters, but it also is the home to 6 other nonprofits that serve the Seacoast, and as well as 6 residents that either work in the nonprofit sector or support the nonprofit sector. So the Cary Cottage and Good Work really is meant to be a hub of nonprofit activity. It's a place that people can come and meet and be inspired and hold retreats. And we really feel like, along with the Center for Nonprofits, we're serving that role of making sure that the nonprofit sector is as efficient and effective as it can possibly be.
Thank you. That's so incredible. And Astrid did mention that she has served as a mentor for Good Work. And as you just mentioned, both Martha and I have done the same. And it's been really rewarding. I spent some time working with Big Fish Learning Center in Dover, and I'm an active supporter of theirs, who I really didn't know much about before I started working with Good Work. So you're doing wonderful things in the community. Thanks so much. You know, when I think about PMAC and our mission in action, just like Martha, there are too many stories to count to figure out exactly what to say to people. But like Astrid, you know, since we've been around for 19 years now, what's been really exciting for me is to see the young people who have gone through PMAC programs, and some of them have gone for 8, 10, 12 years, all the way from kindergarten through high school, participating in our music and art programs after school, go on to college, and then come back to the community and play a great role within the community and even at PMAC. We had, in our very early years, a young woman who was a saxophone student at PMAC and also an excellent pianist. And she was in our chamber music program in high school, and went to the University of New Hampshire and received her bachelor's degree in music, and came back and became a member of our faculty. So we actually saw a student go through the program, come back and become a member of the faculty, then go on to get her master's degree at Temple University in Philadelphia, and now is a piano teacher in Philadelphia, and we stay in touch. But these kids who I remember as middle school students and elementary school students and high school students, some of them are having children of their own right now. The time really flies by really quickly. But when I talk to some of them, what they tell me is that PMAC gave them a home, a place to be themselves, a place to really find their tribe, the people that really resonated with who they are, and they could be themselves, be creative, explore their creative, and learn who they are through that process. And our hope is not necessarily that all those students go and become professional musicians and artists. Sometimes people think of a community arts center as developing the next generation of musicians and artists, which we hope to do, but that's not the primary focus of what we're doing. The primary focus of what we want to do is create wonderful people and citizens who grow up and to play important roles across the social board in our communities. So our students have gone on to become doctors, our students have gone on to become attorneys, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and then we have an extensive adult population as well who are continuing to work. And the great thing about the adults is they don't graduate and move away to college. They stay with us for their whole lives. So that's wonderful as well. You know, when we think about this past year, and I was thinking when we were going to have this conversation that, you know, as we see things changing for the positive so rapidly right now, that I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on the pandemic and everything that's happened. I think we're all pandemiced out at this point. But I am curious about what the biggest challenge you're facing as an organization today. You know, what is it that keeps you up at night? And so, Martha, you know, what's the big challenge at Crossroads House these days, and how can people help?
Thanks, Russ. So it's interesting, and I'm right there with you around, like, who wants to talk about the pandemic anymore? But we've all lived through it, and we've survived. And as a nonprofit, we've had to really adapt in so many different ways. So two-part answer for you. I think the biggest challenge that we faced is that during the pandemic, we couldn't shelter as many people in a congregate setting as we normally would. And it's a really difficult thing to limit providing emergency shelter when there are people desperately in need. So that was a huge challenge. And we continue to face that because while every day it seems like there's a new announcement of, you know, a mask mandate goes away and vaccine rates are increasing and all these wonderful things, there still is not clear guidance for us on our ability to get back to normal, if you will, in terms of being able to provide the number of beds that we did pre-pandemic. So that's the biggest challenge because we have very long waiting lists. Again, as I mentioned in my intro, poverty is not something that's necessarily really visible, but I can tell you There are dozens and dozens and dozens of people on our waiting list, families and individuals waiting to get a bed in our shelter. And so it doesn't feel good at the end of every day not to be able to provide to everyone in need. Our greatest challenge, I would have to say, remains, and it's a very fitting time to talk about it with New Hampshire Gives, is just financially. As a nonprofit, we are not unique in that we have to raise the bulk of our operating income comes from donations. We have quite a patchwork of different funding sources that we rely on. And while we do get some government support, both local cities and towns, the state and the federal government, the majority of our funding comes from private donors, just like those who are tuning in and giving in the next 24 hours through New Hampshire Gives. And so at Crossroads House, we have to fundraise over $1 million every year. So this has nothing to do with the pandemic. This is regular old operating, keeping a shelter open 24/7. So we feel extraordinarily grateful to be able to have the opportunity to participate in New Hampshire Gives and receive the support really year-round from the New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits. And I want to give them a shout out just because they're such an incredible resource for us. Even as an organization that is not new, the folks that Molly's assisting, and someone who's been around as long as I have, it's still a resource. There are still times where I value the kinds of things that I can go looking for on their site. So I will stop there. I think, it's probably something that is shared by many people just around the financial need to keep all of our organizations running. So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's across the board. I know it's the case at PMAC. The cost of doing business has just gotten more expensive over the past year. We're seeing a lot of cost increase in our daily lives everywhere right now, and we're trying to figure out and navigate how do we keep what we do as affordable as possible for the community, as accessible to everyone as possible, and still be a fair employer and be able to provide for our employees in a way that's effective. And our donors really make that possible. They make these programs accessible to everyone, even when people are facing economic challenges. Astrid, what keeps you up at night, Astrid? What's the big challenge that's happening right now?
Well, the thing that normally keeps me awake at night is the safety of our kids. I always feel like it's such a big responsibility to take care of our kids and families. And there's my dog. And not having run the programs this year as much, you shift a little bit towards what is the now most immediate need. And we have a very small board of directors. And I think we're really looking to grow that. And my experience always is that through really connecting in person with people at events, at networking opportunities, that there is this great opportunity to really have that conversation with people. And I'm looking forward to returning to that. And I would also really encourage anyone listening is to reach out to nonprofits that you're interested in and to express an interest to serve in a capacity as a volunteer, whether it's a committee member or a board member, because it's hard for us to find you. But I think, if you're inspired by our mission as a listener right now, I would say reach out to these organizations, and they welcome to hear from you and connect with you. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. And I would not be surprised if there's a future board member for one or more of our organizations watching right now and give any of us a call, or any of those organizations in your own community that you're passionate about, and connect. It doesn't always start on day one as a board member. There are many things that you can do with an organization that lead to leadership positions within a board, and you can really make an impact in your community through the work that you do with a nonprofit. Molly, what's keeping you up at night these days, and what's the big challenges that you're facing as an organization?
Yeah, so I mentioned that we're at Beautiful Carriage, which is a 134-year-old gem of a building that was saved from demolition, as you may remember, in 2019 through the generosity of a family foundation here on the Seacoast and a lot of rallying from the community. And so that the care and keeping of a building like that is significant. And honestly, the things that keep me up at night, and probably my partner Maria more so, given that she is the operational person and handles all of the minutia and the details of, are things like pipes bursting or heating and cooling systems, and things that come with sustaining and maintaining a really beautiful, historically and culturally significant building like that. We try to be very good stewards of that. And one of the reasons that we decided to participate in New Hampshire Gives this year is to establish the Cary Cottage Preservation Fund. Because while we were very very lucky to have the generous support of a family foundation, we now need to get about the business of sustaining and maintaining that building for generations to come. And so that is something that we have our eye on, in addition to serving our incubator participants and providing coaching and support to them. We're really heavily involved with making that space ready for the community to come to. We have beautiful meeting space and are starting to have folks out there. We just had a big group today, and we're having Leadership Seacoast tomorrow. And throughout the summer and fall, we have events planned for people to come and enjoy that space. So I would say that the historical building that we're so blessed to be in is what my current waking hours are spent thinking about. Oh.
There, I'm going to turn my microphone on. It has to happen at least once every time you're on a video conference call, that someone's got to talk and talk without their microphone on. So I'm going to repeat, as a director of an organization that owns a facility, I totally hear you and I totally empathize. It's one of the great challenges that many of our organizations have, and it's a challenge that doesn't go away when you own property, and anyone who owns any property understands that. So I definitely hear you. So I'm curious, it is New Hampshire Gives Day, and I really have been fortunate to be able to support nonprofits through New Hampshire Gives over the years, and not just my own nonprofit, but the nonprofits throughout the state that I really believe in. In fact, I keep hoping I'm going to win the lottery one of these days so I can give to all of the nonprofits, because sometimes it's so hard to pick which nonprofit to support. But I'm just curious, why do you give? And, are there any New Hampshire Gives Day nonprofits that you want to give a shout out to that you support other than your own? So Astrid, what makes you passionate about giving to charity?
It really is, realizing how, privileged to some extent I am myself, and realizing how many people just really need support in an aspect of their life. Support systems that are not always provided by local government or by state government, and the system doesn't provide for them. And I think the success of our community is really based on us providing for one another. And there's many causes I'm very passionate about. I think the challenge truly is to pick and choose a few. I do have the philosophy that I try to support a couple nonprofits consistently rather than move around, because it helps them kind of build their future rather than have a one-time gift and then it doesn't come back. But it's hard. I care about many causes, and Seacoast Outright is definitely one of those causes, close to my heart, and then really supporting young people in the community who are gay, lesbian, queer, transgender, and kids that really need the support. And it's close to Zebra Crossing's mission. It's providing that support community so these kids feel empowered, understood, and guided to take on life. So that's definitely one of mine.
Thank you. I'm so glad you gave a shout out to Seacoast Outright. They're such an important organization, and I love to support them as well. So that's absolutely wonderful. Martha, who comes to mind as important to you during New Hampshire Gives Day, and why do you think it's important to support charitable causes?
Well, it'd be crazy in the business that we're in. We appreciate so much to not be on the other side of it. And Russ, I've often joked with people and say that when I grow up, I want to be a philanthropist. I just want to be able to give money away all day when I grow up. But I do what I can now. And as Astrid said, I agree around, I have a list every year that I keep. I've become more strategic and try to be consistent every year, increasing when I can. But for me, one of the things that I really appreciate is where I have relationships either with the people doing the work, because that's so important in fundraising, is knowing the people and knowing the work. And so that makes a big difference to me. So I have a lot of colleagues around the Seacoast. I will give a shout out in a minute, but I also just wanted to say that we have so many incredible partners at Crossroads House that I so value what they do, because we can't do it all ourselves. And so there are many, many agencies that support the folks that we're serving every day. And so I feel particularly grateful for those. Some of those are Families First, Haven, the Crumple Center, Big Brothers Big Sister, Community Action Partnership of Stratford County. It's kind of a long list. We have a lot of different partner agencies that I feel grateful for. Some arts organizations as well, Russ. I think people are often shocked when they hear, and I should know the number in New Hampshire, but there's an amazing number of nonprofits in the state. Not all are participating in New Hampshire Gives, but it surprises people to learn how much of the work, the good work that happens in our state, happens through nonprofits. And people are often surprised about that and think, oh, doesn't the city or town take care of that? Or isn't that a state funded thing? And it's like, no, these are nonprofits doing this really important work in our community. So I do what I can, and I value all the work that they do. And as we know, no donation is too small, it all adds up. That's always our philosophy. So anyone giving today, know that your donation, regardless of how many zeros it has on the end of it, it all adds up. So
that's right. And the people who are watching right now and who are giving, we're almost up to 1.8 million in gifts today. Those people are making this happen. All of these things happen in our state, and they wouldn't happen otherwise. Molly, why do you give, and who's on your list?
I do give, and I tend to focus, as would be expected, on the little guys, and which, $500 to $1,000 total for them as a result of New Hampshire Gives is a huge win. So I try to give small amounts to folks that have benefited from good work services. I also give to I'll give a shout out to Women Aid, because early as a single young mom, I was the recipient of some Women Aid support and helped me through a challenging time. So, just to be able to give back to that organization that gave to me in a time of need. We have several incubator participants that are participating in New Hampshire Gives. I'm reluctant to start listing them because I may miss one, but Step Up Parents, Artisan, Vouchers for Veterans, Friends of Lafayette House, Our Place, all really exciting new organizations that are coming onto the scene that are going to serve our community in incredible ways.
I am so glad you mentioned, your thinking process behind your support of Women Aid, because I can tell you that I honestly believe, and I'm sure everyone on this call can agree with this, that some of our most dedicated supporters are the people who actually benefited from our programs. They may not be our largest donors, but they become some of our most consistent supporters, and the people who give gifts that mean a lot to them and are very meaningful in their capacity. So there are so many people out there giving today who are benefiting from the work of the organizations that they're giving to, or have benefited from the work of the organizations they give to. And I think that's important for donors to know and understand. Well, I woke up this morning, and I'm going to pull this off of my laptop right here and show you. My wife gave me a list of organizations. I don't know if you can even read that, but it says Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire, 3S Art Space, and Good Work were organizations that I had to make sure that we made donations to during New Hampshire Gives Day. And I add to that list to the Krempel Center and other organizations, but we work together as a household to figure out how we can make a difference in our community at our capacity and what we're able to do. And New Hampshire Gives Day really gives us an opportunity to think outside of the box. And even though, as Astrid mentioned, it's really important, and Martha mentioned, to think strategically about your giving and really making sure that you're not just a drive-by donor and that you give consistently to organizations. I really think a benefit of New Hampshire Gives Day is it gives me an opportunity to maybe donate somewhere where I don't typically donate and to make a difference. So it's a great way to get introduced to an organization. So check out what's going on throughout the website over the next day and give to those organizations in your community that mean a lot to you, and maybe find a new organization that you'd like to support whose mission resonates with you and give a little, and it means a lot. So I'd like to thank Astrid and Martha and Molly for joining me this afternoon or this evening. It's getting late, and being on at this late hour to share their stories. It's been really rewarding for me and exciting. I also want to take a quick moment before we sign off and say that I am also a member of the board of directors for the New Hampshire Center of Nonprofits, or the New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits. And as a board member, I want to sincerely thank all of the organizations who are participating in this day. I'd like to thank all of the donors who make this day such an amazing success, and all of the foundations, including the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, that give so much in matching funds, and the donors who give in matching funds and challenges throughout the day that have made this a greater and greater success each year. As a board member, it's truly exciting to see this happen, because we want more than anything for nonprofits in the state of New Hampshire to be healthy and to thrive and to provide services for our citizens that are so desperately needed in so many different scenarios, whether it is arts and culture, whether you're working with youth, or whether you're helping build the future of nonprofits in our state, or providing shelter for those who need it most. So thank you all for being here today. I hope everyone on here stays tuned for more great clips about nonprofits from the Seacoast and other parts of the state. And I hope you tune in tomorrow with Greg Kretschmar and more that's going to be going on with New Hampshire Gives Day. And I hope more than anything that you give generously and in a heartfelt manner, and know that what you are doing is making a tremendous difference in our state. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and have a wonderful New Hampshire Gives Day. And I hope to see all of you in person soon. Take care.